I got the Holy Grail right here. We're going to sample that into the Lo-Fi 12, and we're going to chop it using the steps in the sequencer. So the Lo-Fi 12 doesn't come with chopping functions, but you use the steps for that. Some of you were a bit frustrated because the machine didn't have any chopping functions, but you don't look at this sort of workflow that way. Anyway, I have something going here, and I'm looping that. The record comes into the Lo-Fi 12, the Lo-Fi 12 goes into the MPC, and the MPC goes into the output. Miles Davis, and this is kind of blue. There's chops everywhere in here. Right. And of course, there's no chopping inside of the Lo-Fi 12, but by using steps, I can just jump into a step where I feel there should be something in there and just search for a point in the sample that fits that step. So I did that just with steps, by creating steps as you saw right there. But I can change the start point of the step and make it different. So I'm just going to try to change the start points of some of these steps. So I'm going to go for this one right now. So I'm going to go into the start point and just see what happens. Stuff like that can be done on this sort of sequencer, right? So I just took a sample like that, right? And I just inputted some steps, changed the start point, changed the pitch just by using the step sequencer. It's really incredible. What I like to do a lot with this sort of workflow is to sample horns and then do this sort of workflow but with horns. So I also have, this is an old beat I have and already comes with some horns, but I'm going to try to sample some of Miles. Right, that's cool. We have that horn, but I'm going to take that away. We're just going to keep the chords in the drums. Right, and this, if you like this sort of sound, this was done by sampling through the 202 right there. It also gets you a lot of crunch. But yeah, what we're going to do, we're going to try to find some horns for this and layer it on top of this beat. And those were my 4 seconds. Right, cool. So let's try and do something with this. And you get things like this. So just by using steps, you have to search for a point, and then you write your own melodies that way. I love doing this sort of workflow. It does take some getting used to, and you have to know the machine pretty well. I have to say that the Lo-Fi 12, I think, still needs a bit of work to refine the workflow. I think the workflow could be a bit easier without using so many buttons. I think sometimes you kind of get lost in the shift functions and you end up doing the wrong thing with it. So I think there should be an improvement in the workflow. But yes, this sort of thing where you use steps to search for sample start points within a longer sample, I think is really something that you can never really do on the MPC. I mean, you could do it, you could replicate that sort of workflow, but it's not as intuitive as it is on a sequencer like this. And by doing that, it is definitely a different way of approaching sampling. You know, I think a lot of people really overlook this sort of beat production style, which, I mean, everyone's sort of used to just banging on the pads, and I love doing that as well. I love chopping my samples that way. But for certain things and for horns, this type of melodic things that you can layer on top of beats, I think this takes you somewhere that you don't really see when you're chopping samples. So that's how I'm using the Lo-Fi 12 right now, is just using it for stuff like this. I could definitely make an entire beat tape out of this, but because I have so many samplers in the room, I really just want to focus on something that this does really well, which is the step sequencer. Of course, sampling at different rates. If I want to sample through it, I can. It offers a bunch of functionality. I'm using the MIDI in to trigger the lo-fi, so both machines play at the same time, and it's on lock. There's no lagging or anything. Yeah, and right now what I'll do is just I'll sample into the MPC. So I'm going into the sampler, and if I just press record, play, it will sample the sequence into the MPC. Stop, it's right here. Of course, I can put it on a pad, keep. I can normalize it right now. I can do all sorts of things I want with it. And I can refine it if I want. I'm doing this super quick for the video. I would definitely refine this and make it sound really good. I can now add effects to this, filters. This also has great filters. I can do really what I need to do to the sample. And now I have it right here. I don't need to use the Lo-Fi 12 anymore. Just need to refine that chop a little bit. And this is the sort of workflow that I'm doing with it, really. Connecting it to the patch bay. Got the patch bay connected to my turntables. Whenever I want to sample with the lo-fi, just connect it to the patch bay, sample inside it, use that sort of workflow, put it into the MPC, and that's it. Of course, I can take advantage of other stuff like the MIDI out. I can actually make beats on this and send it those informations to the MPC, and it's perfect. Of course, before I go, and I think I showed this in my previous video, but I will definitely be using this a lot for bass lines. I think this is super easy. Step sequencing in general is so intuitive when it gets to bass lines. It's just so easy to put a note in, change the pitch of that note, and just kind of, you know, like baby steps, creating bass lines with baby steps, just putting in the notes and see if it works and not. Just you can create such an amazing groove out of this. So it's right now it's sitting right here as you see, and I'll take full advantage of it. I'll probably in 6 months I'll give another review on this, but for now, yeah, I'm trying to learn it as best I can, and this is the sort of work that I'm doing.